The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
My rota. Didn't expect that. Didn't expect that. All right. 1, 2, 3. You have sound now. The mic is now muted. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I mean, the sound is there. Now it's good. All right. You guys are lagging behind me. That's why I thought there was sound a while ago. All right. Excellent. Sorry about that. Don't know if you heard the music, but anyway, we are live. And let me just make sure this is working. Should be fine. Should be fine. All right. Let's. No, that's not fine. Okay. Well, let's do this, guys. We're gonna kind of start over artificially. So I can get this going. So give me a second while I set this up. 1 second. There we go. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's not working. One second. All right, that won't work either. One second. Give me 1 minute. Less than a minute. I think this will be solved. All right, that's that. That's that. Okay, now it's working. All right. Here we go. Music and everything, and you can edit the beginning.
The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this take 2 of the show with a little bit of technical problems. I apologize, but here we are. Everything's working. Today we're going to talk about primarily, the thing that dominates the news, and that is the Iran war. We'll talk in particular about its effect on energy and gas prices, LNG, natural gas prices as well. We'll talk about, so that'll be, as has been the case for the last few weeks, that'll be the dominant part of the show. That is from a geopolitical and from a domestic perspective, that is the number one topic on everybody's minds. So, as I talked about yesterday, Israel struck the Iranian natural gas facility in a natural gas field that the field it shares with Qatar on the other side of the Persian Gulf. a few things to understand first. The natural gas and this facility in Iran are basically all for domestic consumption. So the Iranians use that natural gas for powering electricity in Iran. So by taking out the natural gas in this plant, basically it's not hurting export markets, it's not affecting income to Iran, but it is affecting their ability to power electricity in Iran. It is getting us closer to turning Iran dark. Let me note something. I think that's important. If the United States and Israel were fighting this war properly, no holds barred, no game playing, no qualms, I don't know, just war theory or whatever, then they would have basically darkened Iran. I mean, there's absolutely nothing constraining Israel and the United States from taking out the entire power infrastructure of the Iranians to light up their world. I mean, imagine Iran functioning with no electricity. This would be crippling of their military, it would be crippling of their civilian lives. It would encourage Iranians to have risen up and done something maybe about it. It would have made, it would have distracted the military from dealing with internal strife. But we don't do that. We don't do anything that might hurt the civilian population. We just don't, we used to use, I mean, this is interesting, right? You used to use big bombs that had huge impact and as a consequence had significant collateral damage. Today we use small bombs that are unbelievably precise so that no collateral damage happens. Well, there are consequences to that. There are consequences to that in terms of how many, the kind of damage you're doing to the infrastructure involved. Anyway, the Israelis did take out, or at least damaged, the facility that provides natural gas to in Iran itself. We'll see if this has consequences for electricity production in Iran over time. I don't expect anything to happen instantaneously, but over time. And this is so this happened yesterday. Immediately, Iran launched an attack on the Qatari oil fields, natural gas facility, and by estimates today, reduced the capacity of that facility when it's turned on. It's turned off right now because the Qataris can't ship any LNG, liquefied natural gas, out, so they turned off the facility. But it will reduce the ability of the facility to produce LNG by 17%, and by some estimate, it might take them up to 3 years to fix it. Now, I think that generally there's a lot of exaggeration out there. I don't know that it will really take them 3 years to fix this. The Qataris have a lot of incentive right now to play the victim and miserable, and things are bad, and we're being attacked, and poor us, and it's all Israel's fault, by the way. But anyway, now all of the natural gas Qatar produces, about 20% of all the liquefied natural gas in the world comes from Qatar. So they are exporters. The dominant use is not internal. It's for export. So note, there are two ways in which we get natural gas. We could get natural gas through pipelines, where it just stays natural gas. Most of the natural gas in the United States is delivered to us by pipeline. But if we want to transfer natural gas across the ocean, if we want to export it long distances, there is a process by which the natural gas is turned into a liquid, loaded up on ships, transported where it needs to go. Then there's a facility on the other side that converts the liquid back to gas, and pipelines take it to where it's needed. Think about Japan. Japan uses liquefied natural gas for much of its power. It is now turning back on many of its nuclear power plants, but if not nuclear, natural gas has become the dominant way in which we produce electricity in the world. Why? It's cheap, it's clean, and we have now, which we didn't have decades ago, but we have now a way to move it around the world. Liquefied natural gas. The United States, because of the fracking revolution, has become a massive natural gas exporter, and we export natural gas by this methodology of liquefied natural gas. Think about Russia transporting natural gas to Europe. That was all by pipe. When the Ukraine war happened, and when some of the pipelines got destroyed, Europe immediately built liquefied natural gas depots to get American liquefied natural gas and Qatari liquefied natural gas, so as to power Europe. Europe uses natural gas, to produce much of its electricity. The alternative, of course, is coal. You could also burn oil, but coal has dominated electricity production. And then over the last couple of decades, it's been natural gas, because again, natural gas is cheaper. It's also cleaner, much less pollution as a consequence of natural gas. So natural gas has been involved in really a revolution over the last few decades in reducing the cost of producing electricity and making it dramatically cleaner, to the extent that you consider CO2 emissions bad in some way, if you do, then liquefied, again, natural gas, a lot less emissions than coal. So the world has been moving to natural gas. Even China, which is still building coal power plants, a lot of it is natural gas. Now, one of the reasons China still builds coal, because China wants diversification. It doesn't want everything to be natural gas, because then it is 100% dependent on the Straits of Hormuz to get its natural gas from the Qataris, and so they can't shut down all electricity in the country if something happens. So they have coal, they have a lot of nuclear, they have some sunshine thing and solar and some wind, but dominantly they have nuclear, coal, and natural gas. I think coal dominates, natural gas second, and nuclear third. So that's kind of the story of this attack of Israel destroying what is domestic natural gas, the Iranians firing at Qatar, destroying natural gas that is meant for export, but that is not being exported right now anyway because of the Straits of Hormuz being closed. Okay, in addition, the Iranians fired at the Saudis, at the UAE. They hit a number of other petrochemical facilities in the Gulf. The Gulf states are pretty ticked off initially. The expression of being ticked off was primarily targeted at the Iranians. But what you're seeing is, at least from the Qataris' perspective, they have shifted, together with the Turks, to blaming Israel, which is, I guess, to be expected, right? We are. And then today, the Iranians even try to hit the Israeli refinery, which is in Haifa. What they did hit the refinery. One of their missiles got through, and they hit the refinery. They didn't hit anything with oil in it that burns, or the actual processing facility. Which all those pipes are empty. Israel empties that out completely before launching a war, because they know it'll be a major target. So there's nothing there to really blow up and burn and all of that. What they did hit is an electrical facility associated with the refinery. So the area around the refinery has lost electricity. And if you see pictures online with smoke coming out of it, that is probably what it is. It's the electric facility. It'll be fixed. There's no significant damage associated with what they have done was also significant damage with the attack on the facility in Haifa. Let's see, what else I wanted to say about this? Yes, Trump yesterday said, after the Qatari natural gas facility was hit, Trump basically said to the Iranians, if you continue to hit petrochemical plants around the Gulf, we will destroy your natural gas fields. We will eliminate them. He also said that the Israeli attack on the natural gas facility was not coordinated with the United States. The United States knew nothing about it, which is a blatant lie. Both U.S. sources and Israeli sources have confirmed that the U.S. was in on it from the beginning and gave a full thumbs up about it. So Trump said, we'll flatten your natural gas facilities if you do this. Unlikely that Trump will actually follow through on that threat. It's just typical Trump bombast without really any really intent. Somebody will sit him down and say, do you really want to do that? And come to the conclusion of no. So unlikely to actually happen. So, all of this and the continued blockage of the Straits of Hormuz. Now remember, Iranian oil is still coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. Oil and maybe even natural gas in some places, maybe that have already been loaded onto ships, going to China, Turkey, and I think India is still coming out of the Hormuz Straits. Everything else is stopped. So about 25% of the regular stream of oil out of the Gulf is actually going out. In addition, you have again, remember the Saudis diverting oil to the west. So some of the oil will be compensated through that. My guess is that in the days and weeks to come, U.S. production is being ramped up, given higher prices. There's a huge incentive to do that. It takes time to ramp it up, but it is, I'm sure, being ramped up one way or another. We only have so much LNG capacity. That is, we can only convert so much gas into liquefied form. So you can't ramp up that very quickly. You have to build new terminals, build facilities. So it's hard to say what is going to happen there. But oil, more oil will be pumped out of the ground without any question at these prices, and at least in the places not affected by what's happening in the Mideast. So that is kind of where we stand in terms of, not completely. So the Hormuz Straits, let's finish our discussion on Hormuz Straits. So as we know, the United States has asked for a coalition to form to escort ships out of the Hormuz Straits. Initially, the Europeans said, no, this is your war, we're not coming. And a lot of other countries said the same. This morning, there was a joint communication issued by the UK, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Japan. Remember, the Japanese Prime Minister, Takaichi, is right now meeting with Trump as we speak. So UK, France, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands, as well as Japan, have all expressed readiness to contribute to appropriate efforts to ensure safe passage through the Straits of Hormuz. So I expect that ultimately all of these countries will have ships, particularly the UK, France, and Japan that have, substantive navies. I don't know about Germany and Italy and the Netherlands, but they will. Maybe the others will have symbolic something. I do expect that ships will be escorted out of the Persian Gulf in the weeks to come. It's going to take a while. In the meantime, the United States continues to bomb the shore, as I've told you in the past. It was essential. They continue to bomb the locations in which they could be holding shore-to-sea missiles. They were also using helicopters for the first time, and using what's the name of that one airplane, the Warhog. Let me just find this. It's the they're using 810 Warhogs they're using Apache helicopters along the Straits of Hormuz to taking out anything that looks like a Iranian boat, looks like somebody who could lay a mine, looks like a ship that might be involved in attempting to block the Hormuz Straits. So they are so confident in their control of the skies, so confident they've taken out the air defense systems. Now, A-10 Warhawk, I don't know if you've ever seen this plane. It's a plane that flies relatively low and has these unbelievably powerful guns on the side in addition to missiles, like air-to-land missiles. And it is just this overwhelming, firepower that is, usually in support of ground troops as they're advancing, and it just eviscerates the ground troops of the enemy. You can only deploy Warhawks and helicopters where you're not too afraid of air defense systems because they fly very low. So air defense systems are easy. They're easy to see them. Radars detect them relatively easily. And then they're easy to shoot down because the air defense systems, because they're so low, right? And these are not stealth. So the fact that they're flying Apaches and the fact that they're flying Warhawks suggest that, yes, there's a complete dominance in the air, and they're not worried. Now, I'm not saying a helicopter won't be shot down, they might here or there happen, right? We are at war after all. We've gotten kind of used to a war with no casualties, which is kind of bizarre. But it is a war. And, what we're seeing is drone systems. They're going after the boats. They're going after anything that looks like it is a threat to the straits themselves, so that if they start escorting ships out, they will feel relatively confident that they've taken out all the threats to the Navy ships escorting the tankers out of the straits. So, it's just amazing to me if you've seen how helicopters fight and the footprint of a helicopter, how big they are in the sky and how easy it is to shoot down. It's an expression of the confidence that they have in controlling the skies, that they are using these systems. This is a way to take out trucks, take out small boats, take out anything, without using big, missiles, expensive missiles that come from F-35s or F-16s or things like that. So we've got a coalition that's assembling, that will assemble, hasn't quite, the details have not been worked out. Japan is expressing full support for Trump, full support for Iran. The Prime Minister of Japan, of course, she knows how to deal with Trump. Everybody in the world now knows how to deal with Trump. Effusive compliments to Trump, but generally Japan is ready to support the United States in the Gulf of Hormuz. That is, I think, great news. Japan has probably the third best Navy in the world after the United States and China. And the Europeans are pretty weak these days, Navy-wise. Both the UK and France, who used to have good big navies, are fairly small and weak, but they're there. So there will be a coalition, I think, to bring oil out of the Gulf of the Straits of Hormuz, out of the Persian Gulf. In the meantime, as we say, the Iranians are just, we're going to destroy everybody. We're going to, we're going to take revenge. We're going to, it's all, yapping without any ability to actually execute on it. This is from General Kane, said that they're using A-10s, the Warhawk, to actively hunt and kill Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' fast attack boats in the Strait of Hormuz. So this is not just patrolling. This is not posturing for deterrence. This is using the massive firepower these planes have to basically, take it out. Now, the United States also has the option of taking the islands. We've talked about Karag Island, which, as we said, handles 90% of all Iran's oil exports, which the United States could seize and hold it hostage, and basically force the Iranians' hand into opening the straits. But there are also two other islands that are in the straits themselves that are incredibly strategic. Kesham Island, I think it's called, sits at the mouth of the Hormuz Straits. It has tunnels packed with fast attack boats and missiles. My guess is the helicopters and the warhogs are going after those tunnels right now. And you could control that island and prevent them launching attacks from there. Then there's an island called Hormuz Island, which hosts a small naval craft, again, that could harass shipping. Again, I'm sure they're trying to destroy as much as they can from the air, but they could basically take the island, give them strategic positioning over covering, the strait and facilitating the opening up of the strait. So again, there is a Marine expedition unit, 2,500 soldiers with air supports and support from the sea, is steaming, whatever. Not steaming, that would be steamboats. They are sailing, that's sailboats, sailing towards the Persian Gulf as we speak, probably be there sometime in the middle of next week. So if you control the islands, you control the Hormuz Straits, and you control the supply of oil out. All right, I want to talk for a minute about oil prices and about everything you're hearing about oil prices, which I think can be fairly confusing, the discussions about oil prices, because there are at least two widely used oil prices, and there's a difference between them, and different people are citing different oil prices. And I've been citing one, and maybe the news has been citing another, and maybe that's confusing. So let's zoom in into what these oil prices represent, where they are, and where they're expected to head. So the kind of global oil benchmark, which you hear a lot in the news, is called Brent crude. It's kind of the global benchmark that all other oil, because oil is priced differently based on its sweetness, how heavy it is, how light it is. But this is the benchmark. This is Brent crude. It's basically oil from the North Sea, UK and Norway. Production, particularly on the UK side of the North Sea, is been down over the last decade, but it's still used as a benchmark. It is used to price, right? Brent oil is used to price about 70% of global oil trade, particularly in Europe, Asia, and oil that's seaborne, that is traveled by sea. So, for example, the Brent oil right now was earlier today. When was this? At 5:30 a.m. This was at $111 a barrel, I guess. $111 a barrel, and people were freaking out because it was going like this. This is because of the disruptions, because of what they view as escalation in the war. So it peaked. Right, at 5:30 a.m. today at $111 a barrel. Since then, since 5:30 a.m. to right now, it's 2:30 p.m. I think this is all Eastern time. Yes, Eastern Daylight Time. Right now it is at $103. So it's already dropped $8. So traders were really, really worried at 5:30 a.m. this morning. And since then, they're a lot less worried. And my guess is that the announcement from the UK, France, Netherlands, Italy, Germany, and Japan has given confidence to the oil market that the Straits of Hormuz could be opened and not to panic. By the way, this price went up to way over 120 when the war in Russia broke out. So we're still not even gotten to that level, right? If I look at prices over the last month, over the last few weeks since the war broke out. Yeah, it's just over 100. And once in a while it hits these peaks like 111, but it doesn't stay there for very long, right? Because, they panic as they're worried, and prices go way up, right? So right now, price is 103. Earlier, like yesterday, and earlier in the last few days, it's even been under 100, right? Which is not bad at all, right? But generally, it is priced higher than the second benchmark, which I've used a lot because I get that on my Yahoo Finance screen. It's the oil price that it gives me for whatever reason. I have that on my screen. But anyway, that is at $95, $96, 95 point something. And that is called West Texas Intermediate. That is the West Texas Intermediate price. It's the U.S. domestic crude price. It's priced in Cushing, Oklahoma. And it's the benchmark for U.S. oil. And it's the benchmark for the use by U.S. refineries of U.S. oil. Now, this isn't how much every barrel of oil gets priced at, right? Remember, it depends on the type of oil. These are the benchmarks. You might price it at above West Texas Intermediate, below West Texas Intermediate, above Brent, below Brent, depending on the quantity, depending on the quality, depending on all of those things, right? These are the benchmarks. And again, West Texas oil is typically cheaper than Brent oil. It's easier to get at. It's easier to deliver and transport. And right now, it is less susceptible to geopolitical risk because it's right here. But it's gone up a lot because the oil market is global. People are buying and selling oil in the market. I mean, the U.S., a lot of the U.S. refineries, for example, use oil that is not from the United States. They use heavy oil. We've talked about this in a previous show. West Texas Intermediate is not. So the America exports oil and imports oil at the same time. It exports one type of oil, imports another type of oil. We import from Canada the heavier oil. We import now from Venezuela. A big chunk is coming from Venezuela. So all oil prices, unless we put walls and stop importing and exporting, all prices are global prices. Now again, typically West Texas oil trades at about $10 to $15 below Brent, and right now the spread is if Brent is at 96 and West Texas 96, Brent is at 103. It's trading at a $7 discount, right? $7 discount. And then finally, there's an OPEC basket. The average price from OPEC countries, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and so on. Middle East, this is primarily Middle Eastern oil production. And it's right now at roughly about 100, 102. So it sits somewhere in between the two prices, somewhere between West Texas. The patterns, the way they behave, the graphs all look very similar. So if we look at West Texas oil, it also, peaked at 5 something this morning, and 98.3 went down. It did peak again at over 99 at 10 a.m. and then it's gone tumbling down since then. I think that post 10 a.m. decline is a consequence again of that announcement that the Europeans are going to join and Japan are going to join the coalition to try to get oil out of the ground. It's also the case that Iran has only done limited damage so far to the oil production. LNG is a different thing. It's done real damage to Qatari LNG, but it's 17%. Qatar has 20% of the world market, so it's 17% of 20%. That could probably be made up by other players out there, right? I mean, think about it. Natural gas is something that a lot of countries have and a lot of countries produce right now. Israel produces produces natural gas, right, from the Mediterranean. There are a lot of countries right now that are producing it. So it'll be made up somewhere else, that gap. I do believe that if the war ended, we would pretty quickly, within weeks, return to normal levels of trade in prices and in gas and oil, and prices would really tumble. They'd go back to the 60s for oil. Let's see, what did I want to add to that? Yeah, I mean, gas prices in the United States have gone up, gasoline, because it's priced off of oil, right? The refinery pays for the oil, a higher price. It then passes on the cost in selling that gasoline out the other side. Gas prices in the United States are up $4 a gallon. In some places, $5. California is always insane. Whereas Trump was trying to get it down to $2. Gas prices in Europe have gone up 35% just in the last 24 hours. So a big spike in gasoline prices. I don't think that'll hold, given what I'm seeing in oil prices. The spike won't hold. It'll come back down, right? We'll see. Electricity prices will go up because the natural gas prices are going up. So you're definitely going to get significant shocks to the global economy. Asia in particular is going to be hit. Asia relies to a large extent on liquefied natural gas, imports from Qatar. They rely on oil from Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq and Kuwait and UAE. And while that is not shut down completely, as I said, about 25% is flowing out, and maybe another 25% or something close to that will come once the Saudis are fully operational in terms of moving the oil west. It's still 50% less than what usually comes out, and everything's at higher prices. So the oil shocks are clearly being felt around Asia, in Europe, and in the United States. I mean, we have to pay more for gasoline. You pay more for everything that is ultimately produced by with gas, right? Which is pretty much everything. All right. Let's see. What else do I want to say about gasoline prices? Any questions about gasoline prices? No, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. All right. Yeah, I mean, D. Willows says the Iranian drone threat needs to be dealt with. Last night attack demonstrated allies are not able to stop it. This is a major issue. Yeah, I mean, they need to buy their laser technology from Israel. The Israeli laser technology could probably solve this problem. Also, they could buy the Ukrainian solution. The Ukrainians are very good at stopping drones. They have a technology. Supposedly, they're working with the UAE and Saudi Arabia to bring it in there. Qatar is never going to buy anything from Israel. And I'm not sure they're involved in the talks with the Ukrainians. But technology does exist to get to down drones, and the technology will get better over time. Again, Israel is using a laser technology. It also uses the Iron Dome, and it is very good at downing the drones. Again, not 100% rate. You're never going to get 100%. It's a war. You're going to take damage. You're going to take damage. And I think that the United States and Israel are disrupting the ability of the Iranians to launch drones, but not fast enough. And there's reason to believe that Russia was getting drones from Iran, but there's reason to believe that Russia is now supplying drones to Iran. And there are truckloads of stuff coming in from Tajikistan, which has a border with Iran in the east of Iran. There are trucks coming in, supposedly humanitarian aid. But everybody knows that it's most likely weapon systems, including drones. It's possible that the Iranians have built a drone manufacturing plant in Tajikistan, and they are bringing drones in from there. Israel yesterday took a step, pretty amazing, to stop the Iranians from getting drones from Russia. And they did that by basically attacking Iran's ports on the Caspian Sea. If you think about, I don't know how much geography you guys know, but in the north of Iran, there is a sea called the Caspian Sea, which Iran is at the southern border of it. And at the northern border of it, you have Russia. On the western borders, you have Azerbaijan and Russia. And then on the eastern border, you have Kazakhstan. But Iran was using boats to go back and forth to Russia, both to deliver goods to Russia, to help them out in their war effort. And Russia was sending materials to Iran by boat through the Caspian Sea. Well, Israel yesterday, remember, this is very, 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 very far away. So this is pretty amazing, right? Pretty amazing. Israel basically destroyed the Iranian Navy's northern fleet that is on the Caspian Sea. Aircraft carried out airstrikes, both pierside, that is boats that were docked, and naval vessels that are underway in the Caspian Sea. They also destroyed shipbuilding and repair facilities and command and control centers in what's called Bandar Anzali, which is in northern Iran on the sea. And, when they said they were going to take out the Iranian Navy, it wasn't just in the Gulf and in the Indian Ocean. This was everywhere. And, this included an Iranian frigate. It was taken out. Video is being published of the attacks against them. All right. Okay, we've covered that. We have covered that. We have covered that. I'm just going through this. I mean, one of the things you brought up drones. One of the things that everybody I think realizes now, and maybe finally the Trump administration will realize this, and much of the rest of the world. Right now, Ukraine is the world champion in designing, launching, and intercepting drones. They make probably the best, in terms of most practical, drones in the world. They know how to launch them in all kinds of circumstances, and they're brilliant at intercepting them. Remember that attack where the drones were in a truck deep inside Russia, and they came out and they attacked Russian facilities? But every single day, they are facing swarms of drones from Russia, and they're handling it. And they are basically holding back a significantly larger, better equipped, or used to be better equipped, but a significantly larger Russian army with Ukrainian-built drones. And originally, when Ukraine started building drones, most of the components in the drones were Chinese. Well, they have got to the point where they now are building their own drones with no Chinese tech. I mean, I should do a whole show just on Ukraine. I actually met the former minister of the economy and the current president of the School of Economics in Ukraine, in Kiev. I met him recently. A fascinating guy. Anyway, they have the most innovative, most creative. They have competing companies. The drones make it to the battlefield immediately. They're constantly, reprogramming, innovating, changing the software, changing the hardware, depending on battlefield conditions. There's no country in the world today that is as good at drones as, again, battlefield-type drones. Ones that can actually work. They don't have the most sophisticated tech that the Americans and Israelis have, but in terms of just that work, and maybe. I mean, this is a wish. My wish. This American administration could be friendlier to the Ukrainians, and the consequence of that could be that they share some of that technology with the United States. I mean, Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a Financial Times article today that is just, again, just pretty panicky about oil. Panicky about oil. Now, as we said, Brent oil, we talked about the prices. So they're giving here Oman. If you want to buy oil from Oman, you have to pay over $150 a barrel. If you want to buy oil from Dubai, you have to pay over $140 a barrel, which makes sense, given the difficulty of getting oil out of there, right? So again, oil prices, lots of different prices out there, depending on the specifics of where it comes from. And we are going to see the global market having to adapt. And, markets are very good at adaptation. You will see demand shifting. Local prices of oil will go up. Gasoline prices go up. What happens? People drive less. This will happen all over the world. People will figure out alternative sources. Maybe in some places around the world, like China, they'll shift to more coal and less natural gas. In other places, they might shift. They might shift the mixture in other directions. So, look, there is going to be disruption, but nobody seems to think that the current changes, because of maybe the Financial Times, that the current issues are such that you're going to get a global recession yet. If it continues long enough, there'll probably be a recession, but it doesn't seem that bad yet. All right, a few other things. Israel continues to kill senior leaders within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. You don't hear about the one level down as much. They just are not. They don't make a big deal out of it. But the channels I follow keep reporting new people that are being killed, like the deputy head of intelligence was killed overnight. Iran keeps appointing replacements, like Laranjani's replacement was just being appointed. This guy, Hussein Degan. Degan's been around for a long time. I mean, he is he goes back to the revolution. He was involved in taking of the siege of the U.S. Embassy in 1979. He was involved with Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria in 1983, when the U.S. barracks were killed, killing 241 U.S. service personnel. He's been in command of the IRGC's Air Force, deputy chief of the IRC, joint staff, head of the IRGC's Cooperative Foundation. He was fired, though, at some point by Khamenei and demoted significantly, and now he's been brought back to basically run the country. So Laranjani was basically running the country because the supreme leader, Khamenei's son, nobody's seen him, nobody knows. He might be in a coma, he's injured. Nobody knows what's going on with him. He's certainly not on the day-to-day running of what's going on. This guy's basically stepped in to take. Laranjani was running things. Laranjani was killed by the Israelis 2 days ago. This guy's stepping in to replace Laranjani. You can, maybe if he turns out to be significant, if he survives long enough, then I'll give you more of a profile on him and we'll look more deeply into him. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, more and more reports are coming out that there is real issues and real conflicts and real challenges at the leadership level in Iran. I mean, again, the entire leadership, basically the entire leadership has been decapitated. They're gone. And these are substitutes. These are people who weren't expecting to be in these positions are filling in. Command and control facilities are being destroyed. I mean, they're obviously still functioning. They're still firing rockets. But at some point, there's a good chance that all of this, falls down. Now, Israeli news channel Khan is reporting that the U.S. and the Saudis and maybe the UAE are talking about boots on the ground as part of the security of the Straits of Hormuz, where Arab forces will provide troops as well as the U.S., side by side with the U.S., with Israel providing intelligence and maybe help with air cover. That would be amazing if that happened. If you actually got some of these Arab countries participating on the American side, that would be a game changer. All right, let's see. Yeah, I mean, all Iran can do at this point in terms of defend itself is shoot at petrochemical plants, create oil disruptions in the oil markets, and hope for the best. Right? There's nothing else that it can do. It can't attack. It can't down U.S. planes in any significant way. It can't down Israeli planes. Hasn't even hit an Israeli plane yet. It can down some drones. It can't take out any of the American ships. It can't do anything. It can't really do anything. So all it can do is fire at the petrochemical facilities. All right, a few other things relating to oil. Remember when Trump eliminated the sanctions, or temporarily eliminated the sanction on Russian oil, in order to add it to the supply of oil available on a global scale, hoping that would lower oil prices overall. Well, Secretary Bessent is floating the idea of eliminating the sanctions on Iranian oil that already is in the sea, in the ocean, so that they can sell it anywhere. So it gets added as well and reduces prices. That doesn't strike me as really working. But I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing. But it doesn't strike me as working. I mean, that all has to be taken into account already. So the idea is in order to hold back all prices, the Trump administration would again lift sanctions on the oil that's already being in play. What else do I want to say? Yeah, I mean, Qatar this morning definitely blamed Israel for its problems, which is pretty amazing. I mean, Qatar hosts the largest American military base, Air Force, in the Middle East. It hosts CENTCOM, forward headquarters. It's the nerve operation of the entire operation against Iran is in Qatar. And they're getting hit as a consequence, but it's easier for them to blame Israel for getting hit. They certainly don't want to blame the Americans. And, they have been very, very friendly to the Iranians for a very long time. They supposedly said they were going to kick out Hamas from Qatar. I haven't seen them actually do that. They kicked out some Iranian diplomats, but I don't know how significant that is. They are in this middle. They don't know where to position themselves. One thing they do know is that they don't like the Israelis, right? Let's see. As I said, Prime Minister Takeachi is with President Trump, and I think she's going to express support for what she has expressed support for what the U.S. is doing, and again, will help with the Hormuz Straits. Okay, finally, with regard to this issue, the Pentagon has asked Congress to approve a budget of $200 billion to fund this war. Now, $200 billion is much more than the war so far has cost, but a lot of this is money that will be spent during the war and after the war to replenish supplies of the things that we are discovering in the United States we don't have enough of. Missiles, defensive missiles, THAADs, Patriots, but also offensive missiles, the kind of missiles that the airplanes use to bomb, kind of the bombs that the airplanes use to attack facilities. Now, we have an endless amount of what's called glide bombs, dumb bombs, the bombs that are not, guided, I guess, the most advanced guided bombs. The glide bombs are what Israel and the United States are using right now because they have almost an endless supply of them. It's the really, really smart bombs that are in short supply, and they're going to have to replenish. But mainly, the replenishing has to do with the defensive weapons, the air defense systems, and it's really quite shocking if you look at kind of how low supplies were going into this war, how low supplies have become over the last couple of decades, how slow the defense industry is in producing these bombs, how little money the Defense Department has spent in actually keeping an inventory. It really is, given the size of the defense budget at $1 trillion, you'd think that a lot of that budget would be to make sure we had the supplies to be able to engage in a war. I mean, if China really did want to invade Taiwan, I don't think they do, but if they did, now's the time to do it. The United States has very little supplies of certain crucial weapon systems. And they're being depleted on the battlefield. And its defense industry is not being funded in a way that can increase production. This is what the $200 billion is supposed to do. It's stunning to me. Where's the rest of the $1 trillion going? If not for this. So I don't know why you need an extra $200 billion, but this is really a kind of a wake-up call to the United States. The U.S. runs a massive budget deficit. It just hit $39 trillion of debt that is not taking into account the unfunded liability. This is just the funded debt. $39 trillion, which is just stunning, right? Now they want $200 billion more, which I can understand, and I would vote for. But the money, where's the money going to come from? Where is the money going to come from? Is hard to figure out. I mean, the United States today spends about under 4% of GDP on defense. It spent in 2010. It spent 4.5. In 2025, it's at 3%, actually. During the Korea War, it was at 11.4%. Now, partially, the government was much smaller, did a lot fewer things, and the defense spending was a much bigger chunk of that. Today, welfare, Social Security, Medicare, all these other things take up a big chunk of the budget. Vietnam, it was 8.6%. Peak of in the 80s, it was 5.9% during the Reagan buildup. And then it bottomed down in 1999 at 2.8%, and then went up because of 9/11 to 4.5 in 2010, and since then it's come down to 3%. I mean, the U.S. should probably spend 5% of GDP or 4% of GDP on defense, and then pretty much nothing else. We should probably not be spending much more than, right? I mean, the federal government spends 22% of GDP. So, everything else is more than, what is it? That's 3. So that's more than, it's more than 7 times more than we spend on defense. But defense is what we have a federal government for. It's the main role of the federal government, is this. Our government has grown so much. It spends so much money on entitlements, primarily, by the way, middle-class entitlements, Medicare and Social Security, that we don't have now enough money to build Patriot missiles to defend ourselves from ballistic missiles being shot at us. All right. Let's see. All right, that's what I have to say mostly about the war, energy crisis. Again, I'll say I think mostly things are going well in spite of what you're reading. I know there's a huge amount of doom and gloom out there, but things are going well. The energy issue is the main problem. The Straits of Hormuz are the main problem. I still think it's a massive travesty, unbelievable, that the Trump administration didn't anticipate this and didn't put into place a solution in the first few days. But they seem to take a week to 10 days just to realize it's going to be an issue and then start planning for it. But better late than never. And it seems like solutions will be happening in the next week to 10 days. But this should have started on day one, and we should be with the solution now already in place. So again, this is the cost of having Trump be the commander-in-chief. But it's also possible that nobody else but Trump would have done this. I think Nikki Haley would have done it and done it better, and done it with allies, and done it with a plan. Israel knew that Iran would punch back. I don't know where they came up with this idea that Iran wouldn't punch back. I mean, again, they underestimate the fanaticism, the religiosity and fanaticism of this regime. The fact that this regime is willing to die. The leaders are willing to die. This is jihad for them. This is 72 virgins for them. This is in the great cause of Allah. These are not thugs like Venezuela. So either way, it's a massive, massive, massive fail on the part of the Trump administration not to anticipate this. All right. One of the phenomena that are happening right now is that gold prices are going down. We talked about this a little bit yesterday or the other day. West Texas oil prices are continue to go down. They're now at 94. They were 96 earlier when we talked. Within the last few minutes, they've gone to 96 to 94. And that's lower than they were 24 hours ago. So in spite of the whole Qatari thing and everything, oil markets, once they settle, they're not panicking. They're coming down. Now, they bottomed at around 92. When was that? About a day and a half ago. So we'll see what happens the rest of the day. But so far, they look like they're going to be in the low 90s. This is not Brett. This is U.S. oil prices. All right, we talked about gold and the fact that gold was not behaving like you would expect. Gold is now at 46.35. It was not just a few days ago. It was over 5,000. Here's a headline from CNBC. This is CNBC. So this is the financial network. And this is the kind of headlines that, make you go, do financial reporters know anything about what they're talking about? Here's the headline. Gold and silver sell-off accelerates as inflation fears grip global markets. And they say this without thinking about, wait a minute, isn't gold and silver, aren't they inflation hedges? Isn't the whole point about gold and silver, and isn't the reason they went up so much, we were told, because of inflation? Now, fears of inflation causing gold and silver to go down. Now, they don't say cause. They're just saying a relationship. They're just showing a correlation. But it's suggestive, right? Gold is down just today, 5%. Silver's down 7%. Silver is at 72. Both are incredibly volatile over the last few days and certainly over the month. Remember that not that long ago, silver was over 100. Right? I mean, there was a point, when was this? In January, at the end of January, silver was at 114. As late as end of February, it was 80, 87. It's now 72. Gold is at, now silver, you could say, if you expect the global economy to slow down, industrial demand for silver will decline. So prices should go down. But why gold? Gold is not primarily driven by demand by industry. It's primarily driven by hedges against inflation and against the end of the world. I'd expect the possibility of the end of the world to be higher right now than it was before the war started. And gold is way lower. And my point is this. I really do believe that gold, and to some extent silver, but certainly gold, that the price is basically speculation. Now, everything is speculation, but speculation decoupled from real concerns about inflation and about the end of the world and about the dollar and about all of these things. I don't think gold actually reflects all that. I think this is there's a certain aspect of gold that is similar with the meme stocks, where people just get all excited and they rush in and they buy a bunch of it. So I think that, and I've said this before, so yeah, I mean, gold, silver, way down. I mean, interesting. It says Reuters headline is gold extends losing streak on expectations of tighter policy from the central banks. Central banks are tightening. Why are they tightening? Because they fear inflation. I mean, but it's not really inflation, right? Because remember that oil prices going up is not inflationary. It raises some prices, but since the quantity of money chasing those goods is the same, other prices have to come down. So it might raise prices, but it's not what you'd consider classical inflation. And it's not even clear. Some measures of prices go up, but not, it's not universal, right? Central banks are not, I don't think central bankers are buying as much gold as people are claiming. The value of the gold that central banks has gone up. The percentage of reserves has gone up. But that's just because of the run up in gold prices. So if I hold X amount of gold and I don't even buy any, and it goes from 2,000 to 5,000, suddenly a bigger chunk of my reserves are in gold as a percentage. So I don't know how much central banks are really buying gold. There's a lot of stories floating out there about these things. I mean, they have been buying some, but I don't think that's a driver of the price. Central banks, are not price movers. Speculators, individuals, are price movers. They're the marginal investors, I think. Maybe one day we'll look back at this episode in gold prices and have a better explanation for what exactly happened. All right, Cuba. Yesterday we talked about Cuba and the fact that the regime there seems to be teetering, and there's a lot of American pressure, and maybe even a Venezuela-like assault and all this stuff. And the Cuban regime seemed to be really compromising. Interestingly enough, today, all the headlines are suggesting the opposite. That is, they're suggesting that the Cuban leaders are actually standing up to Trump and that they're holding a hard line, and they're not actually, on the verge of giving up. Cuba is supposedly, there's Russian oil heading its way. Remember, one of the consequences of Trump eliminating the sanctions on Russian oil is that Russia can now provide Cuba with oil. So it looks like they are, and there's oil heading Cuba's way. Cuba is basically saying, we're not going to give in to Trump. Nobody's going to take us over. They are claiming that they will resist to the end, that they're going to fight the Americans. They will not give in. They're not looking for an exit route. They're not just going to hand over Cuba to the Americans. So we will see. We will see who is right. But it does seem like over the last 24 hours, the Cuban governor's kind of woken up and said, no, we're not going away. We're going to fight this. We're going to stand up to Trump. We're going to stand up to the Americans. This is not just going to be us folding, which is unfortunate. I was hoping this would just go away. All right. Let's talk about this bill that is at the Senate right now. It's passed the House. It's in front of the Senate. It's called the Save America Act. Trump has basically said he will not sign any bills until this is passed. And yet it needs 60 votes in the Senate to pass, and Democrats are violently opposed to it. The Senate yesterday voted 51 to 48 taking a debate about this act. It's called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. And this is all about voter ID and voter registration, and about the federal government having access to voter lists at the state level, and basically, but including maybe potentially banning mail-in ballots and the federal government intervening significantly in what has always been the responsibility of the states, and that is election. All with the idea that, there's massive amounts of fraud. Elections are being stolen left and right. Trump won in 2020. More than that, Trump claimed that in 2024 he won California. I mean, the vote rigging is so bad that even won California, he probably won every state in the union. There's probably no state that voted against him if you count the votes the way Trump would like you to count the votes. So anyway, this bill has a number of different provisions. So let's just go over this quickly, because this is going to be discussed in the Senate for who knows. This is the biggest political domestic issue right now. So under current law, people registering to vote have to present their driver's license. I'm reading this from readtangle.com, which is a news source, which gives pretty reliable descriptions of these things. So people registering to vote must present their driver's license or at least 4 digits of their social security number to verify their eligibility. So that's how you register to vote. If neither form is available, states can verify citizenship through a federal database. For those registering to vote by mail-in ballots, states verify identity by comparing the signature on the ballot to one on file. Now, you can see that this is pretty leaky, right? A lot of states issue driver's licenses to people who are illegal. Theoretically, they could register to vote based on their driver's license, although once they compared to the federal database, it would find that they don't do it. Now, a number of states have audited their voter rolls, including many red states, but also some blue states, have audited their voter rolls and have found very, very, very few illegal immigrants voting or registered to vote. I mean, illegal immigrants want a low profile. They don't want to get on some database. They don't want to be discovered. They want to stay low. Generally, study after study after study after study after study finds very little voter fraud happening, particularly at the level of nationwide elections, like presidential elections or congressional elections, and at the level that would sway an election. Voter fraud exists all the time. It's small and insignificant, and as far as we know, has not swayed an election, at least in modern times. So what will the new bill do? The Save America Act would limit mail or online voter registration, require documentary proof of citizenship. So you'd have to show a birth certificate or a passport to register. So when we register to vote, we'd have to bring a birth certificate or a passport. The bill would also mandate government-issued photo ID at the polling places. To vote by mail, voters would need to attach a copy of their identification when requesting a ballot and sending it back. Alternatively, people voting by mail could submit the last 4 digits of their social security number along with an affidavit stating that they could not obtain a copy of a valid photo ID. Furthermore, the law would require states to submit their voter rolls to the Department of Homeland Security for cross-referencing with citizen data. So what this bill does is it makes it much harder to register to vote. There are a lot of people in the U.S. who do not have a passport. Many of them, by the way, Donald Trump voters. The people who vote consistently Democratic, the college graduates, typically have a passport. It's also true that many people don't have an updated birth certificate. Now, why would you have to have an updated birth certificate? Well, for example, if you're a woman, you would need to update the birth certificate with your new name if you changed it when you got married. So many married women do not have a birth certificate with a current name on it and therefore would not qualify. So, this is it just makes it harder. Now, to me, it makes complete sense that you need to show an ID at the polling place. This seems like low-hanging fruit and easy, but Republicans want more. They want these bigger restrictions. Republicans say the bill is necessary to maintain the integrity of the U.S. elections, particularly by preventing non-citizens from voting. In recent weeks, some GOP lawmakers have called on Senate Majority Leader to force a talking filibuster. Talking filibuster is that you can't vote as long as the Democrats or those in opposition are talking. It's not an automatic 60 votes. They have to keep talking. Now, but after keep talking is work. And it's complicated and it's hard to put together. And it's not clear the Republicans have the votes to force a talking filibuster. I think, by the way, all filibusters should be talking filibusters. If you're going to demand 60 votes, you should have to work at it. Democrats are against this bill and pretty united. It doesn't look like Republicans are going to get the 7 votes that they would need to get 60. And it's not clear all Republicans will vote for this. They might have a few defections as well. So they'll probably need at least 9 Democrats to vote for this. And there are no 9 Democrats that are going to vote for this. Now, why is this such a big deal? I think this is a way for Trump to argue that elections are stolen and demand that they be fixed. And when they're not fixed, if this bill doesn't pass, it'll give him an excuse to argue that the midterm elections are illegal and to try to do something to overturn them. I don't think he'd be successful, but he could try do something. Look, this is Trump's pet peeve. This is his issue. I won the election in 2020. And this is all about Trump. I don't think there's anybody who's a Republican who really, really cares about this that much. I mean, even Mike Lee, who's a big supporter of Trump, at some point says, again, we must ask, why this bill? Why now? And the solution and the reason for that is Democrats are scheduled to win the House and maybe even win the Senate, which would be a catastrophe for the Republicans and for Trump. And maybe changing the rules of the game, maybe trying to ban mail-in ballots, maybe doing something like that would prevent a loss. Unlikely, because I think a lot of Republican voters do not have the birth certificate and the passport. But who knows what would happen? Who knows how it all shakes out in the end? There is a compromise bill. There's a compromise bill proposed by Fetterman. Come on. Compromise bill proposed by Fetterman, which would basically just be voter ID when you come and vote. See, so you have to show an ID when you come to vote. You have to show an ID when you come to vote. I mean, I think that's a rational solution. It improves voting. It makes it more reliable. We don't have to go through the birth certificate and passport and all this stuff. Maybe they'll ultimately compromise around that. But Trump is going to be very angry and very, very, very committed to this. It's going to be interesting how all this plays out. Remember, we've already got a partial government shutdown. If you've been to an airport, you probably noticed there's not enough TSA agents out there. And the reason is they're not getting paid because the Department of Homeland Security budget is being held up as they negotiate a solution to ICE. This is something that's also holding up the Senate in terms of any other legislation. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Legislation is usually bad. And it's going to be interesting to see if the Republicans are willing to compromise. They might, but Trump might threaten to veto it if they do. I think Republican senators would love to get rid of this, would love to take the Fetterman compromise on themselves. Just have a photo ID. a photo ID when you vote. Look, I'm all for having fewer people vote. I don't think voting, it's not the biggest issue. The voters, it's a mess anyway, and it's not clear from these bills how it would affect the actual voting. So I don't think this is an important one way or the other. But, it does make sense to me. Instead of coming up to a voting booth and just saying, yeah, I'm here, my name is, show an ID, show that this is really who you are. I don't think this is in order to create a photo ID, but I think Fetterman's bill also makes it easier for people to get a photo ID, if you don't have a driver's license, let's say. But the whole thing is just a trumped-up Trump thing. A trumped-up Trump thing. But big in the news. You're going to talk about this for the next few days, maybe weeks, depending on how it goes. All right, finally, the FCC has put Apple on notice because Apple News is an app that you can get. It's a website you can go to. Apple News, it's like Google News. It's a curator of news stories. They claim Apple News is biased. What a shock. And supposedly, being biased is illegal because being biased is actually a deceptive practice. You didn't know that, did you? It's a deceptive practice. I don't think it's deceptive at all. I assume all of them are biased. In a report that was published by the Media Research Center, who are probably pretty biased themselves, they found that of the 620 top stories on Apple News displayed in January, 440 were from left-leaning outlets, and precisely 0 were from right-leaning outlets, including widely read sources like Fox News and New York Post. I guess this was updated, and they found more recently that 2% of the stories came from right-leaning publication. Now the government is going to get involved. So the government is going to tell us, Apple News is biased, therefore we need to find them, we need to shut them down, we need to silence them. I mean, everybody knows that Apple News, given that most of the news is biased. I mean, imagine how many stories they'd have to run from Fox and the New York Post to match all the left-wing publications that are typically on there. So we now have the FCC trying to regulate what news is presented to us on apps that we voluntarily choose to use. Bye-bye First Amendment is right. So, yep. All right, on that cheery note, that is the news for this Thursday, March 19th. And we will go to your questions. We are kind of dragging today. What's going on, guys? Kind of slow. Oh, Catherine's trying to make a dent in that. Thank you, Catherine, for the sticker. But yeah, I mean, we're way off. We're like $80 short of our first hour goal, and we're already halfway through our second hour. So I don't know where some of my whales are, but some of you need to show up, and we need some 50s and 100s and to get ourselves on track again. Not a lot of questions. Remember, questions are great because it's you get to ask me. I'll talk about what you want me to talk about. You get to shape the show. Stickers are great because you don't have to ask a question, and yet you can trade with me and value for value. You get value from the show. You're listening. 150 people are listening. 160 people. Trade with me and by providing some value in return. So please think about doing a sticker or asking a super chat question. Catherine, thank you for the sticker. Let's see who's done a sticker as well. We've got William, thank you, and and Nature Observer, and Silvanos, and Jonathan Honig, CP Milken, thank you, and now John, thank you guys for the stickers. I appreciate it. And we're gonna jump into the questions in a minute. Let me just mention that Alex Epstein is if you read his Substack, you will learn so much about what is going on right now, in the world of energy, of power, what's going on in Washington, D.C., the power struggles, and, the cost that we're all paying. By the way, I didn't mention this. I meant to mention it. You know that the UK, Great Britain, is sitting on massive fracking of natural gas, the reserves that they could access if they used fracking. And then a decade or two ago, there was a massive debate in the UK about fracking. And all companies were willing to invest in fracking. And the United Kingdom could have provided all the natural gas and, as a consequence, all the electricity really, really cheaply from their own gas and not be reliant on world markets. And, of course, the consequence of that debate was, oh, no fracking here, not in my backyard. So the United Kingdom could have been energy independent. It could have had some of the cheapest electricity prices anywhere. And it chose not to. And what they have now is some of the highest energy prices in the world. They could have built nuclear power plants like France did. Much of Europe sits on frackable natural gas reserves, and they refuse to frack. So the fact that the price of energy is skyrocketing and that they are going to struggle with it, it doesn't make me too sad, given that it's their choices that have led to this. Their choices have led to this. Sadly, that is where we are. So, Brits, start fracking. What's the matter with you? Frack, frack, frack. All right. So check out Alex Epstein. You'll learn so much. AlexEpstein.substack.com. AlexEpstein.substack.com. Porto. We talked about Europe. European objectivists. Objectivist of the world. Join us in Porto in April. April 18th, I think, that weekend. A conference. I'll be there. Uncle will be there. Taltzfani will be there. And I think it'll be an exciting program. We'd love to have you there. You can find that information at aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here. And join us. You can get a discount, 10% discount on whatever the cost is. 26YBS10 is the discount code. 26YBS10. All right, guys, we are $50 short of that 1 hour goal. And we're on the second hour, and we might finish the second hour. Need more questions? Need many more questions, particularly at the $20 level, $50 level, but 20 at least. Many more questions, and stickers would be good. Roland, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate it. And by the way, would love it if you liked the show. Would love it if you subscribed. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We've added quite a few subscribers to the Yaron Brook Show over the last month or so. All right, let's start with Michael. Do we overestimate how anti-capitalist the left is? They use altruistic egalitarian rhetoric, but every major city where what's left of capitalism takes place are all run by lefties. Yeah, I mean, but that would suggest that they don't want to completely destroy the golden egg, the golden goose the goose that lays the golden egg, which is the little bit of capitalism that we have. So they work around the edges. Some of them are suicidal, like some of these wealth taxes or the new income tax in Washington. But they, in spite of the fact that they run these cities, the cities are still producing a lot of wealth, and there's still a lot of finance. There's still a lot going on in these places, in spite their leftist leadership. And that's because, at the very least, they realize that they can't hurt it too much. I mean, it's pretty amazing, though, how in spite of all the regulations and controls from in California, Silicon Valley is still there. And that is in spite of the regulations and controls. They're still there because of the network effect of being established there. And such large numbers of people and companies and venture capitalists all in one place. But I don't think we overestimate that they're anti-capitalist, because they really are anti-capitalist. But we underestimate how pragmatic they are, in the sense of, yeah, we don't want to completely destroy it, but look at the taxes they just raised in Washington State, which is going to drive a lot of businessmen out of that state. The fact that they might vote in this wealth tax in California, which will drive out a lot of the billionaires in California. And ultimately, we could see Silicon Valley slowly dissipating. I think one can only imagine how much better Silicon Valley would be if California had more reasonable regulations, or not at all. How about that? That's the most reasonable answer. No regulations at all, particularly on the tech industry. All right, $40 to make our first hour goal. Let's see. Harrison. Val Kilmer is going to be starring in a movie despite his death. I wish Hollywood had the guts to really push that AI trick in more interesting ways. Why can't we have modern movies starring Boris Karloff and Marilyn Monroe? I mean, theoretically we can. I don't know if the technology is that good yet. It might be good on a small screen, but is it good on a big screen? Is the acting, how real is the acting? So we will see. Ultimately, yes, but again, how well can you program it to act? Can it ever match an actor, a human being? But yeah, it would be good if they became more creative. But they have to deal with the unions, the actors union, the various unions in Hollywood that are restricting the use of AI quite a bit. So they have to deal with that. All right, Michael, part 1. Why do you assume the Second Amendment is completely ineffective against tanks and F-35s? Those planes have to land somewhere. A few million armed American citizens with AR-15s can do a lot of disruption. Maybe. But, right now, they have to land. Those air bases could be protected by tanks and Marines. And do you think that these Americans can really, the average guy who has a bunch of guns because of the Second Amendment is challenged by Marines? I think you guys underestimate how good a professional army is and how difficult it would be. Now, look, there would be an insurrection, and there would be commando units, and there would be people out there fighting against the tyranny. Hopefully, I hope that all happens, but it would be rough. It would be rough as long as the U.S. military went along with whoever the authoritarian is. It's going to be very, very difficult. I mean, how many internal revolutions have there been in the modern world against a well-functioning government? Second Amendment or no Second Amendment? Michael also says, and you're assuming the people running the tanks and F-35s would even be willing to use those weapons on their own citizens in the first place. Well, yes, I'm assuming that because we've now reached a point where we've embraced authoritarianism. So a significant number of Americans have embraced this. The military has not risen up against it. I mean, again, you can draw all kinds of scenarios. In my view, almost every scenario, the Second Amendment doesn't play a big role in what happens, right? I mean, if the people running the military are anti the authoritarian government, then they're the ones who would turn on the government. They're the ones who have the big guns. They're the ones. I can imagine a civil war between different military units fighting each other for control of the country, right? It's and again, you could imagine a guerrilla warfare campaign by Americans who have guns because of the Second Amendment, and they fight on against the authoritarian American government. But it's not going to be particularly effective. You know, again, given a modern, I mean, the American government will have satellites. Again, it'll have airplanes. Don't even need F-35s because the Second Amendment doesn't give you the right to have air defense systems. The Second Amendment doesn't give you the right to have satellites or to have, radar. So you don't even need a stealth bomber. All you need is a general simple plane. I mean, imagine, I don't know if you've ever seen what one of those, what do we call them before? Those C-10s or whatever they're called. I mean, they have these massive guns. I mean, they can mow down thousands of people fighting. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to do a revolution, the first thing you would do is break into military bases and steal equipment. And for that, I don't think you need a Second Amendment for that. You knock out some people who do have guns, you take their guns and and you break in and you steal handheld anti-aircraft stuff. Maybe you steal some tanks. I mean, you steal it. But for that, you don't need a lot of weapons because you just steal the weapons. So if we're going to launch a revolution, we're going to have to steal most of the weapons anyway. It's not going to be your handgun that you have next to your bed or in the safe that's going to save you. I mean, if the Iranians are going to have any success, they're going to have to break into some of these military bases that the Israelis have weakened and steal their guns. Anyway, it's not that interesting of an argument about the Second Amendment because it's irrelevant. We have a Second Amendment. It is protected. The Supreme Court is pretty adamant about that. And when we have an authoritarian government, we'll see what happens. Hopefully we never do. But if we have it, we'll see what happens. Harrison, who else here started being regular viewers again, especially for the military analysis? Well, obviously, viewership has gone up significantly since the war started. It went up significantly during the first days of the Gaza war. And then it settles back down to where it was. But yeah, I mean, I get a lot of viewership that is war-related. People value my military analysis, and they show up. And on days where there's a lot of news about the military, more people come to the show. On days when, like today, where there's a little less news about the military and what's going on over there, there's fewer people. But generally, the military stuff is what gets people to come on the show, which is great. Jesh, thank you. Thank you. He says thank you, and I say thank you to him for the rupees, Indian rupees. Kiki, were Soviets too altruistic to nuke Afghanistan? They were not altruistic, no. I think they were afraid of nuking Afghanistan, that would create real hostility from the United States. Remember, this is the 80s, this is Reagan. They were afraid of the West's response. They did not want to antagonize the West by using a nuke. Also, a lot of Afghans supported the Soviet Union. They didn't want to hurt their allies. I don't think they really wanted to create a zone in that area where there was fully radioactive. Lots of reasons why nukes are not particularly efficient weapon systems in warfare. Jonathan, I support the operation in principle, but I have little confidence in Trump's commitment and competence to do it, worried he'd make things worse. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he can make things worse. Even if they stop today, Iran is significantly weaker. So I don't think he'll make it worse than before the war, but certainly I am too. I'm worried about Trump's commitment. I'm worried about his incompetence, his lack of planning, and the fact that he won't finish the job. So I'm worried about the ultimate outcome. Spend a lot of money on something that won't actually achieve the ultimate outcome when we're so close. That would be a challenge. So yeah, I'm worried like you about Trump. Paul, do you foresee the IRGC going underground and becoming a guerrilla terrorist organization within Iran after regime change? Yeah, I do. I think they become a terrorist organization. They try to become a terrorist organization. But again, it's much more difficult to motivate people to fight on your side if the cause seems lost. And that's why defeating them is so crucial, not just negotiating with them, but defeating them so that the cause is lost. And then they'll be less powerful. But yeah, there'll probably be a terrorist threat within Iran from the remnants of the IRGC for years to come. Harrison says, Thursday is rapidly becoming my favorite day of the week because tomorrow you will be able to hear a linguistic industrial rock song about the manufacturing of pacemakers called Machina Pulses. Anywhere music is available. Cool. So you guys should check out Machina Pulses. James, did you hear about the F-35 that was shot down today? Do you think it is real? It is amazing that 10,000 strikes have been done and only one plane hit. Yeah, it is amazing. Again, some American planes have been shot down by friendly fire, but by I think a Kuwaiti pilot. But this is the first time it seems like an American or Israeli plane has been shot down from air defense systems. It doesn't look like it suffered a lot of damage. The plane managed to land in a air base on the other side of the Gulf, not in Iran, right? And the pilot seems to be injured, but okay. So it couldn't have suffered a lot of damage. So it's not clear what exactly hit the plane and what caused it to come down. So we don't know yet the details. It'll be interesting to see once they investigate it, what actually caused the plane. It is interesting that Israel flew 12 days in a 12-day war, has flown this war, thousands of missions, and not a single plane has been down. All right, Harrison. Come on, people, show you're not jobless bums. I didn't say that. Harrison did. Right? 20 more bucks would get us to at least the 1 hour goal. Roman, how should Cuba change the liberal democracy? Well, they would need some kind of interim government that basically instituted a democratic process and allowed political parties to form. It would be good if they kind of, put together some kind of constitutional convention and wrote a constitution. But you probably want to have first some kind of voting to get people elected who are not with the current regime. So you don't want this regime writing the constitution. So you want an interim government that establishes elections and then run an election process and then have some kind of constitutional convention that writes a constitution, and then you run the elections again based on the new constitution. I think, and the most important thing to be done is private property, is the recognition of private property as quickly as possible, which would mean a completely new legal code and getting rid of the existing judges, and it's a lot of work. Wesley, what has Trump done wrong in Ukraine from an objectivist point of view? No more taxpayer-funded aid, continued weapon sales to Europe, intelligence sharing. Again, so from my point of view, I don't know about objectivist point of view. From my point of view, I think it was worthwhile providing taxpayer-funded aid. You could find my talk on the war in Ukraine, where I give a full explanation of why. I think it's directly in America's self-interest for the Russians to lose in Ukraine, and it prevents the risk of Americans ever having to fight directly against Ukraine, which I think should be against Russia, which should be avoided. So it's money well spent to prevent an attack on NATO, which would directly involve the United States. What else has he done wrong in Ukraine? God, he has argued that Ukraine started the war, so he's lied about it. He's provided moral support for the Russians. He has taken Russia's position on almost every issue related to Ukraine. So he has, one of the most powerful things an American president has is the bully pulpit, is his moral sanction, is his moral support. This is what Reagan really did to bring down the Berlin Wall, much more than military spending. It was his unequivocal support for the people against the communist regimes. The biggest bad thing Trump has done is he's refused to condemn Russia. He's refused to place blame where it belongs. He's refused to provide moral support to Ukraine. He's refused to support, think about the fact that if we'd supported Ukraine directly, it would be much easier right now to get the kind of drone technology we need in order to stop, to help, the Gulf states deal with the drone attacks from Iran. But we've pissed off the Ukrainians, so, it's a problem. But, yeah, I believe in direct aid from the United States to Ukraine. Stop all the aid everywhere else in the world. This one is in American self-interest. Stop giving aid to Americans who do nothing to support American interests, welfare, Social Security, Medicare. Reform all those programs, but, keep funding stuff that actually supports American interests, like Ukraine. But the biggest thing he's done is the moral issue, the bully pulpit issue, the fact that he is being so pro-Russia in his speech and his behavior, the way he greeted Putin in Alaska, the way he treated Zelensky in the Oval Office, that has been unbelievably destructive to the Ukrainian cause. Roland, my high school math teacher told us, he had held a machine gun during the 1956 revolution. This is revolution. This is in Hungary, I take it. Not sure where he got it, but I'm pretty sure the communist regime didn't have a Second Amendment. Yeah, revolutionaries don't wait for the government they're revolting against to defend their right to have weapons. They steal them. Hungarians and Czechs and others fought against the Nazis. Inside. The Polish resistance fought against the Nazis inside. Not because they had a Second Amendment, but because they stole the weapons from the Nazis. So ultimately, any resistance is going to have to find ways to steal weapons from the dominant force. Now, in Hungary, they lost because that machine gun was not good enough to withstand the Russian tanks that rolled into Budapest and into Prague. But, yep. Harrison, with great inventors, entrepreneurs, and businessmen throughout history, in your opinion, deserves to be immortalized in song? Which great inventors? Oh, God, so many. Where would you even start? Where would you even start? Francis Bacon as the thinker who makes human progress, the first one to really think about human progress and give it moral sanction, if you will. And from there, all the scientists, all the great scientists from Galileo and Copernicus and Newton, of course, but Maxwell and all the others in the 19th century. And then, inventors, the guy who invented I don't know them by name. The guy who invented the steam engine and the first mechanized sewing machine and loom and the sewing machine, Singer, and yeah, there's no end. It's a long list. It's great. A.B. Schmidt. Joe Kent is under investigation for leaking classified information. Yeah, I know. I saw that. But here's the challenge. We don't know if he really is under investigation because he really did leak the stuff or whether this is Trump getting back at him. I mean, Joe Kent is a scumbag. He's a racist, anti-Semitic scumbag. He should have never been nominated, and the Senate should never have approved him for his position. So I have no problem. I've nothing but hostility towards him. But I don't know if what Trump is going after him about the leaked information is true or not, because I don't trust Trump not to. What do you call it? Lash out at somebody who's criticized him with some bogus accusations. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks to all the super chatters. Thanks to everybody who's here. A few $2 stickers, $1 stickers would get us over the threshold. That would be great. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Don't forget to rewind the show and listen to the beginning of it if you came in late. Thanks for everybody being here. But if somebody wants to do $8 so we can make it at least the first hour goal, that would be amazing. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow and over the weekend. And have a great rest of the week, and see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.